So today, let's move ahead. And we've got verses number 20, 21, and 22 of the chapter 13, Kshetra, Kshetrakya Vibhag Yog, lined up. I'll start with verse number 20. Prakritim Purusham Chevam Vidyanadi Ubhavapi Vikaransh Gunacheva Vedhi Prakriti Sambhava. So the verse translates to: know that Prakriti, matter, and Purush, spirit, are both beginningless, and know also that modifications of gunas or qualities are born of Prakriti, matter. So let's take this up word by word. Prakritim is matter, Purusham is spirit, and even Vidhi is to know, Anadi, without a begin, or beginningless, Ubho, both. Api also, Vikaran are the modifications, distortions, modifications. Cha and Gunan, so of the gunas. Cha and Ev also, Vidhi no, Prakriti Sambhavan. So Prakriti is matter, Sambhavan is born. So Prakriti Sambhavan means born of Prakriti or matter. So the translation wise, the verse is very simple. Know that Prakriti or matter and Purush or spirit are both Anadi, beginningless, and also know that modifications and gunas are born of Prakriti, matter. So let's chant it together. Prakritim Purusham Cheva Vedyanadi Ubhavapi Vikaransha Gunascheva Vedhi Prakriti Sambhavan. So in this verse, Krishna is saying that both matter or Prakriti and Purusha or spirit that enlivens matter are beginningless. Both of them are Anadi. So Brahman, God we know, or at least we have grown up believing that one of the attributes of God is that he is without a beginning and without an end, right? But what about matter? Now, this is something, at least when I try to relate to the Bhagavad Gita, this is one of the areas where you say that was matter always there? So when we are saying that matter is also beginningless, how is it so? So I thought I'll take out some time to uh, put forward my logic in front of you as to how matter is also beginningless. And I'll quote various sources, various verses within the Bhagavad Gita, and also our own logic. So see, when we talk about beginningless, that means without a beginning. So we are moving into the realm of time. Now, time, okay, one is the measurement of time, as you know, as minutes, hours, and so on and so forth. So that is like you have a ruler for measuring the length. So that is different. But when talk of the concept of time, so when you say that, okay, today I'm of this age, so that is a measurement. But when you talk of an incident, it happened so many years ago, or it was before another incident. So basically, in our psyche, when we talk of time, it arises from experiences. Experiences happen when we start contacting the world, and our consciousness, our awareness contacts and perceives them. So a happy time or a bad time, we had World War I in this year, we had World War II, India got independent in this year. So, we start putting them on, the occurrences, events, individual events happening, and it is what it is an interval between two set of experiences. So experiences are due to our contact with the objects of the world. Objects of the world are derived from the matter, prakriti, right? So events, experiences give rise to thoughts, and different events, experiences generate different thoughts. This is the concept of time as an interval between two thoughts or two experiences. Here it's almost interchangeable. And this is also validated that in a dream, we have no concept of a linear time. So, I could dream being an old person in my dream and then come back to my youth or some dream is completely ad hoc on not on a timeline. So these intervals don't exist in a dream. So time is actually an intellectual concept because our intellect is perceiving those experiences. So by this very definition, time is subjective. And this is what is said by in Einstein's theory of relativity, that, when it's simplified, of course, it's a more complicated theory than just what I'm saying, presenting before you, that when you are having a pleasant experience, time seems to fleet by. And when you're having a bad experience, it extends itself. So time is subjective. Now, time is an interval between two thoughts means that at origin, at zero time, there is no concept of time because you cannot have an interval between two times. There is no experience. There is nothing there. It is only with the second thought or the second experience that the concept of time arises. So if we think it through, we will realize that matter. So all the objects that you're interacting with in the world, matter also is beginningless. It's not within the purview of this world of experiences or interval between two experiences. Therefore, both Brahman and matter existed before the measure of time emerged. And therefore, they are both beginningless. Also, I will see some part of it we have covered in Gyan Vigyan Yoga. So I will present the important verses in front of you. This is chapter 7. And I'm doing all the theory bit today first so that we move ahead with the remaining two verses also. So please bear with me. Now, this was the Gyan Vigyan Yoga, where we had talked about the two aspects of Brahman, which fell into the higher and the lower nature of Brahmans. Right? Some of you may recollect this bit. Verse number 4 of chapter 7 talked about the lower nature of Brahman, which consisted of subtle and gross matter. Now, subtle matter consists of intelligence, buddhi, mind, man, and ahankar, ego. Gross matter consists of the Panch Mahabhut, the Akash, Vayu, Agni, Jal, and Prithvi. By itself, the lower nature of Brahman is inert. Verse 5 of chapter 7 talked about the higher nature of Brahman, that Jeev Bhut or the life principle that enlivens the lower nature or the part which is inert. Also, the higher nature of Brahman, when we read about the attributes, it is beginningless, it is omnipresent, it's unmanifest, and so on and so forth. So even from the experiencing point of view, it is inert in a way. It is only when the lower nature of Brahman, which is matter, both gross and subtle, and the Jeev that they combine, that we have this phenomena of life, right? And that is what verse number 6 went on to say of the same chapter, that the combination of the higher and the lower nature of Brahman results in life. Know these two energies to be the womb or the source of all living beings. And he goes on to say that I am the origin and dissolution of the whole universe. And in fact, this is what we just recapped as well. But what is important is that combination of spirit and matter produces life or living beings or the creation. Now, these two things, the higher and the lower nature, provide the fundamental structure for the creation. So see, you say, what am I wearing? I'm wearing a cotton. I'm wearing cotton. Okay. But the cotton that you grow in the field is something that you cannot wear because it is flimsy. It is when we convert it into threads and then we start weaving it as woof and weft, which is running lengthwise and crosswise, that the texture of the fabric is created, which I can use, right? This is the Tana Bana of life. So similarly, as we create the woof and weft threads to create fabric, the higher and the lower natures of Brahman, they create that structure on which creation can manifest itself. So this is what we had covered in chapter 7. Why I'm revising here is for two reasons. One is that in this particular chapter, when we are talking about Kshetra and Purush, we are actually talking about the same aspects, about those same energies. So it is being called Kshetra or matter here, and Purusha spirit remains the same. And the creation, the combination results in the Jivatma, the beings. Okay. So the enlivening force of the Jivatma is the Purush or the spirit. Now, when we come to subjectively to the Jivatma, right? So each one of us as a separate being, this cycle of birth is prompted by ignorance, which exists in us in the form of vasanas. So, as per my gunas, my world is projected for me. It is my conditioning. A person A will have a different set of projections. So, it is a different world. And what is amazing is, so if we have a billion people, there are actually a billion worlds that are existing, which are based on our individual conditioning, our own combination of the gunas. Right? That is one amazing part. So the world of my experience is projected as per my gunas. And with the gunas, also the modifications that we have been discussing, they also come into force. So verse 12 of chapter 7. So the take home here is that for understanding these verses, we must revise chapter 7 once again. So verse 12 of chapter 7 says that, had said that the gunas, the three gunas, tamas, rajas, and sattva, are in God, in Brahman, or right? And God is not in them. And the 14th verse of the same chapter referred to this interplay of gunas as the cause of creation. And it referred to it as Maya or illusion. Right? And this is exactly what we have covered. See, in a lot of it we have covered in this chapter also. So verse number 6 and 7 of this chapter explain the kshetra, the body and the field. And we covered the 31 factors that constitute the field, the matter. Okay. And also their modifications. The 7th verse was talked about the modifications. So what are we saying? We are saying that it is out of Prakriti that both the gunas and the various forms come into existence. But the Prakriti is in creation enabled by Paramatma, God. So now the soul shares all the characteristics which are ascribed to God. And now we come to that question that was just asked during the recap session. So the Jivatma has all the characteristics of God, Paramatma. So we know that God is without a physical existence is unmanifest, beyond the gunas, eternal. But in case of Jivatma, because of its association with matter through a body, which is because of the vasanas, it acquires the opposite attributes as well. So the Jivatma gets a body, hence a shadow. All the characteristics of matter, it comes under the realm of gunas, and it becomes impure and destructible. Impure means it ignorant and destructible. So deluded and destructible. So because of this, because of the second part, where the Jivatma associates with matter to manifest itself, beings or Jivatma goes through the cycle of birth and death, whereas Brahman does not. Okay. So this is the concept of birth and death. Now we come to cycle of birth and death. This, you may recollect, we had covered in chapter 8, which is Akshar Brahm Yoga. And there we had talked in detail about the macrocosmic cycle of creation and dissolution. So these were verses 18 and 19, which talked about how beings emerged at Brahma's day and dissolved at Brahma's night. And Brahma's day consists of 432 crore terrestrial years. Similar is the length of Brahma's night. So this was the creation. The day period was the period of creation or kalp, and night was the period of dissolution or pralay. So what was said there was that constantly beings come out in Brahma's day. So from the unmanifest, beings manifest, and they start dissolving back into at Brahma's night. So the manifest starts becoming unmanifest. And this cycle of unmanifest, manifest, back to unmanifest continues endlessly. This again tells us that both matter and spirit are actually beginningless, since they are two aspects of the same Brahman, and these cycles are endless, where they interact and manifest themselves and go back. So this is another point which lays down the fact that both Brahman and matter, or both matter and spirit, are beginningless, because there are two aspects of Brahman. Also, God is eternal. So whatever or however God manifests itself will also be eternal, will be beginningless. So both the higher and the lower natures are also eternal or beginningless. So I thought this is what I would present before you to prove the point that both Prakriti and God are actually beginningless. So now it is the interplay of the higher and the lower natures that produces the manifestation of the creation. And in the play of matter and spirit, the cause of creation and substratum for both is that God, light of lights. And the verse also says that all changes and modifications belong to the realm of matter, the lower nature. And if you see the constituents, you will realize that that is the only thing that is changing. Brahman remaining the same, or matter, spirit remaining the same. So Atman itself is changeless. So this was verse number 20. Let's move on to 21. कार्य कारण कृतत्वेः हेतु प्रकृतिरुच्यते पुरुषः सुख दुःखानां भोक्तत्वे हेतुरुच्यते. In the production of effect and cause, Prakriti, matter, is said to be the cause. In the experience of pleasure and pain, Purusha, spirit, is said to be the cause. This is what the verse translates to. Let's take this up word by word. Now, karya karan kritatve. So, karya is effect here. Karan is cause. Kritatve is born or is produced or is created. So, karya karan kritatve means in the production of effect and cause. Hetu, cause. The second hetu is what is the cause of the production of cause and effect and cause. So, hetu is cause, prakriti, matter. Uchyate is said. So, the first line it translates to matter is the cause of the production of effect and cause. That is what it's saying. Then Purusha is the spirit. Sukh Dukhanam. Sukh is pleasure, Dukh is sorrow. Nam is of. So Sukh Dukhanam becomes of pleasure and pain. Bhog Pritve. When we experience, in the experience, Hetu cause Uchyate. So Purusha, the second line translates to Purusha is said to be the cause of the experience of pleasure and pain. So the whole verse translates to in the production of effect and cause, Prakriti, matter, is said to be the cause. In the experience of pleasure and pain, Purusha, spirit, is said to be the cause. So let's chant it together. Karya karana tatve प्रकृतिरुच्यते पुरुषः सुखदुःखानां भोक्तृहेतुरुच्यते. So in the creation, the play of cause and effect is continuously taking place. And what Krishna is saying here is that Prakriti is responsible for bringing about this projection of effect and cause, or cause and effect. Now, Prakriti consists of both the subtle and gross matter. So even the subtle matter, which is our buddhi, man, ego, ahankar, and of course the gross matter is the panch mahabhuta, which our bodies consists of, akash, vayu, agni, jal, and prithvi. So this is what Prakriti is, right? And Purusha by itself has no expression. It is changeless. So when something is changeless, how do you know that it's happening? So when you're sitting in a plane, see, when you board a plane, you know there's some movement happening. When the plane is trying to take off, you can see relatively the buildings whizzing past you, so you know you're moving. But once it's taken off, and if it's a clear sky, there are no clouds, you don't know what is happening, whether you're moving or not moving, right? So movement is not taking place in Purush. Movement is taking place actually in matter, but matter is inert. It is only when Purusha, the spirit, is enlivening matter, that this expression of creation is manifesting, and then we are able to see the changes. And this combination of Prakriti, which is enlivened by Purusha, is actually each one of us is that combination. And we see in ourselves how all the changes are taking in us, both at the physical level. So, you grow, your skin changes, you become darker when you stand in the sun. So physical level is very clear. Our blood changes every 3 months, and so on and so forth. Even our thoughts in the subtle body. So that means our emotions change, our perceptions change, our intelligence changes, discrimination changes. So, but all these changes are in Prakriti, in matter. So Prakriti is the cause of the world, or the cause of the play of cause and effect that we see around us. Right? So now when we come to the individual birth and cycle of birth and death, see, when we were discussing the last verse, we had talked about the macrocosmic cycle of creation and dissolution. But when we come to the individual cycle of birth and death, my past actions have created the present being with the present set of vasanas. These bring about related thoughts, which lead to the necessary action to fulfill that thought. And while fulfilling that thought, or while acting, I am generating future vasanas, which will be the cause of my next birth, if all the vasanas are not sublimated in this birth. So the cause of vasanas, which is our causal body, is also actually part of matter. It's not part of the spirit. This is also Prakriti. The Purusha, or the spirit, or the pure consciousness that enlivens us. And the, see, so I may have a mind, but if it is not enlivened, and like we were discussing during the recap, I may have eyes, but to see, I need that enlivening force. I need that spirit to enliven my faculties. So it is the Purusha, or the spirit, that enlivens our matter, our bodies, the kshetra, specifically our consciousness, which enables us to experience the pleasure and the pain, which are the modifications of the kshetra, as we covered in verse number 7 of this chapter. So where we had talked about the 7 modifications of the constituents of the kshetra. So without the Purusha, or the underlying pure consciousness, we cannot experience any feeling or emotion. Hence, Purusha is said to be the cause of pleasure and pain in this verse. Moving on to verse number 22, I will chant. Purushah prakriti sthito hi bhungte prakriti jan guna karanam guna sangosya satsadyo ne janmasu. So the verse translates to the Purusha, spirit, seated in Prakriti matter, indeed experiences the gunas, qualities, born of Prakriti matter. Attachment to gunas, qualities, is the cause of its birth in good and evil wombs. So let's take this up word by word. Purusha is spirit, Prakriti stha, or seated, sthit in Prakriti. So Prakriti stha becomes seated in matter. He indeed bhungte, enjoys. Prakriti jan is born out of Prakriti, or born of Prakriti. So Prakriti jan becomes born of Prakriti. Guna is the gunas, qualities. Karanam is the cause. Gun sang, gun is the gunas, sang is attachment. So gun sang becomes attachment to gunas, or the qualities. Asya, of this. Sat asat yoni janmasu. So sat asat here means good and evil. Yoni is womb. Janmasu is of births. So sat asat yoni janmasu becomes of births in good and evil wombs. So the verse, I'll repeat the translation. The Purusha, seated in Prakriti, indeed experiences the gunas, born of Prakriti. Attachment to gunas is the cause of its birth in good and evil wombs. So let's chant together. Purushah prakriti stho hi bhungate प्रकृतिजान् गुणान् कारणं गुणसङ्गोऽस्य सदा सद्यो निजन्मसु. So I would like to draw your attention firstly to the fact that we are reading very, very non-trivial facts. And therefore, if they take time to sink in, facts or concepts. So if they take time to sink in, please don't give up the subject. Just exert some more and you will then derive the full benefit of what is being said here. Just give me a moment. So now, see, in the previous verse, Lord Krishna had said that Purush is the experience, is the cause for experience of pleasure and pain, right? This verse is actually explaining how Purush is the cause for the experience of the pleasure and the pain. So what the verse is saying, that Purusha seated in Prakriti. So the Purusha seated in me, or the Jivatma, the matter. So a Purush seated in Prakriti refers to the Jivatma. Prakriti is consisting of the three gunas, tamas, rajas, and sattva. The three gunas themselves are inert. When the Purush enlivens them, the Prakriti manifests as the three gunas are manifested in the Jivatma. So the pure conscious, that Purusha, pure consciousness is the source of the three gunas and supports both our internal temperament and the external activities, right? And not only of one being, entire creation actually. So it enlivens our body, mind, and intellect, and we become conscious of our actions at the body level, emotions at the level of the mind, and thoughts at the level of the intellect. Now, the problem arises when we get caught up with matter because of our ego, ahankar, which also you may recollect is one of the subtle matter that we had talked about. So subtle matter consisted of the ego, the buddhi, ego, and what was the third thing? Was the manaha. So buddhi, ahankar, and manaha. These were the three things that we had talked about. So when we get caught up with our ego, because of our ego, let me put it another way, because of our ego, we get caught up with the matter, with the gunas and the matter. And we think that I am the doer, feeler, thinker, etc. This is the delusion. Okay. And we had talked of this as far back as chapter 3, the chapter on Karma Yoga, verse number 27, which read or translated to, actions in all cases are performed by the gunas of Prakriti. One who is deluded by egoism thinks, I am the doer. And the verse 28 of the same chapter, chapter 3, goes on to read that, but he who has true insight into the distinction of the gunas and action, knowing that gunas as senses abide gunas as objects, is not attached. That means all this play is taking at the level of matter in Prakriti. So gunas as senses, which is the subtle matter, abide in gunas as objects, which is the gross matter, right? So this was what verse number 28 of chapter 3 read. So what is meant is that out of delusion, we are getting attached to gunas. And we also, at that point of time, had discussed how each one of us is a combination of these three gunas in different proportions. So out of delusion, we get attached to the gunas. And this attachment results in the growth of desires and vasanas. See, a very simple example is you are moving on the road. Someone crosses the road. Okay, fine. I mean, you make way or do the necessary action at your end. Someone else may say, "Oh, that was a nice dress that that person is wearing." Okay, fine. That is also okay. Judgmental, but fine. Then the thought becomes, someone else may think that, okay, that was a nice dress. I wonder where she got it from. Okay. Again, now the desire is gradually building up. The vasana is building up. Then you think, okay, maybe I should find out. So we are attached to someone, something that happened as, we were innocuously, someone passed us on the road. So this is how the attachment grows in us very, very harmlessly. We don't even realize. So you have the mango, the first mango, and you want to have another piece of the mango. You have a sweet, you want to have another sweet. The doctor said no. You say, but okay, let me have a small bit. So this is how the attachment grows and the delusion then comes in. Also, if our vasanas are inherently sattvic, we will have sattvic thoughts. And because we have sattvic thoughts, we will do the requisite actions. We'll have related desires. Similarly, rajasic and tamasic. So the chronology of action is very simple. Vasanas give rise to those requisite thoughts, give rise to the necessary action. So all types of actions are depending on the gunas, right? And in verse number 15, here we are taught that the one who identifies with that essence understands also the play of gunas, right? That all actions are performed by the gunas of Prakriti. They are at the level of the matter. So gunas are belonging to matter and not to God. The deluded, ignorant get attached to the gunas. The wise understand this play that is taking place. It is enlivened by God, but it is at the level of matter. So the wise is unattached. And of course, God has nothing to do with what one is doing. He just enlivens us. All the actions are our problem. So essentially what the verse is saying, that attachment to gunas leads to indulgence in the world, which leads to accumulation of desires and vasanas. And this is the source that causes birth in good and evil wombs. Okay, now good actions will naturally take us on to ensure a good birth for us, and bad actions will lead to a unpleasant birth for us, right? But see, at the heart of it is the unfulfilled desires. We must never forget this, that it is the unfulfilled desires that are the cause of our next birth. So our desires are not only, determining our this life, but also our next life. And of course, the nature of reincarnation follows the law of karma. The texture of vasanas determine our next birth, and good vasanas will result in good birth and pleasant circumstances. This you may recollect we had covered in the Dhyan Yoga chapter, in answer to Arjun's question, where he said that even if I move on this path of yoga and I'm not able to reach you, then what will happen to me? I mean, will all this be of waste, all this effort that I'm doing? So that is when the Lord had talked about that, how the good vasanas or good actions will result in birth in a good, prosperous household, both monetarily and intellectually. And of course, evil vasanas will result in evil wombs. So with that, we come to the end of today's session.